Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Who's got a case of the Mondays? It's the 17th of May, 2021, and this is the Daily Medicine Transmission. Boy, oh boy, I did talk about this day, this time frame a lot last week. We are now here at this really pinnacle moment. And the title of today's transmission is The Patience Will Be Worth It, because we're about to get a little sneak preview, I think, of what's to come throughout this week. Especially in the intuitive message we're going to be looking at today. And our moon is just now coming into Leo, and the sun is in conjunction with fixed star Algol, the head of the Gorgon, in a trine angle, 120 degree angle with Pluto retrograde. So I talked a lot about this last week. The moon is in Cancer, also in an opposition to this Pluto retrograde, but will be in a sextile, a 60 degree angle, 60 degree angle with the sun at the very same time. So while there is this very strong foundational relationship between the sun in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn in terms of releasing, right? Adapting, releasing, letting go of the aspects of ourselves collectively and individually that are a representation of our unresolved trauma, of all of the toxicity that comes to the surface and is presented to the world. It is time to let that go. And we've had stirrings of this now for a while. And now that the sun is at this point, and remember, it's also in conjunction with the Pleiades as well. So part of this process is very natural. It's part of the natural cycle of death and rebirth that Taurus, in a very basic sense, will represent. That everything that is natural will decay. And that's a normal part of the process. So along with the moon in Cancer, in late Cancer, as we're going to look at in the chart. One second here. The sun, as much as I love it, I'm having some issues with some glare. Okay, that's not the best lighting, but oh well. We're going to be looking at the chart and the reading here and not so much my awesome, cute face. But what I will say here is the moon in Cancer, in its rulership of Cancer, in late Cancer, this degree is about catharsis that is in opposition to Pluto and is in that sextile, right? That 60 degree angle that is harmonious but requires our participation. It's an investment opportunity of our energy. And if we can see where we are, we talked about this actually in the astrology report, discovering the core of who we are is a big part of this week's astrology, especially with a moon in Cancer, which is about getting to the core of who we are. Mars is in a conjunction with Sirius right now and has been over the last day. And so we are bringing the mundane into the sacred in this moment as well. So there is a lot of opportunity here to really get into the core of who we are from an emotional standpoint, from a subconscious standpoint with the moon, our feeling-based landscape that the moon represents, because the storm rips through the canyon and destroys everything that is not embedded within the canyon itself. And so there is a catharsis here, because really this degree of Cancer that the moon is in when it's in an opposition to Pluto, when it's in that sextile to the sun, it's a confrontation with a social upheaval. It's not so much the upheaval, but it's the confrontation with that upheaval that absolutely demands that we reconsider what we believe to be static values. And there is a very strong catharsis that goes along with it. A violent storm, that's the Sabian symbol. A violent storm in a canyon filled with expensive homes. So what will survive the violent storm? Well, the canyon certainly will protect anything that's in there, as long as we kind of rely on that very basic structure. But the confrontation with the social upheaval, it is going to demand reconsideration of static values. And so we can really allow the release of that which is not doing anything but holding us back, right? That Gorgon. And when we release that part of ourselves, it actually is used in order to confront the bigger monster that is under the collective unconscious, the Kraken in the ocean, right? So we go back to Greek mythology and we look at these archetypes that have already been set up and, align ourselves with them and make conscious choices. So there's a lot that's really coming to a peak today, and the patience really will, I swear to God, will be worth it. That the pick for the thumbnail for the image of today's transmission, that is, again, that's my own photography, that's my own property. And if you remember last week, that same blossom was not quite open yet, and now the rhododendron has opened and it's beautiful. And it's just like with any natural cycle, we have to have patience. We can't force this process along, but we can make choices on how to align with it coherently and with full conscious intention. So let's actually look at the chart, because also what's happening today hold on one second. What else is happening today is that the Venus is going to meet the moon's north node. So that nodal axis of the moon representing our karmic direction, where we've been and where we are going, where our soul is pulling us in order to learn something. Okay, come back here. Where did you go? Like I said, there we go. I'm not entirely sure why this is happening in terms of there we go. Exactly. Okay. Well, that was strangely intuitive. Okay, guys. So we're looking at 2:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just want to show you the sextile to the sun, the opposition to Pluto, like I said, and at the same time, the sun in a trine to Pluto. So this requires no participation. It is actually something that will be very well. These two aspects are going to get a lot of traction. And with Pluto retrograde, we're going back over all this territory that started in March of 2020. This is where Pluto will retrograde back to degree-wise, the same degree it was at the beginning of March 2020. So we're going over a lot of the last year, which has been significant and substantial and has been a big part of this destruction of the old guard. And what we do with it collectively and individually is really up to us. And but there's a lot of support along this process, so we can express ourselves by peaceably adapting to the collective need, giving up that identity that is really a representation of all of this unresolved trauma, all of the toxicity coming to the surface, all of the aspects that are untamed in some ways. And it's not to say this is evil or bad. It's just an expression of what happens when our trauma is unresolved. This is what the Gorgon represents. And it's very powerful feminine energy, right? It's very powerful female aggressive energy when you were talking about the Gorgon. And Medusa was a beautiful woman at one point, and then she was raped in temple. Oh God, was it Athena or Aphrodite? I can't remember. I'm gonna have to go back to the specifics. But as a result of that process, was turned into the Gorgon. So there is so much here that is supporting this process and the catharsis that we are feeling within us. And the moon, especially because the moon is at home in Cancer. This is a really powerful moment here that we can really embed ourselves in the core of who we are so that we can handle the social upheaval and have the courage and the capacity to address and to confront this upheaval as well, which, in an opposition to Pluto, it's very powerful, right? That Pluto is the power of our transformation and can really just take over any territory that it's in because it's the final word. Pluto and death is the final word in our physical universe. We have to remember, though, that Capricorn is not the end of the cycle. That's what That's what, we relate Capricorn to the devil and to Satan in the tarot and archetypally, for instance. And when we get stuck and the material world is the end, as far as we're concerned, that's how we get caught in the loop, right? The feedback loop, the trauma loop, the loop of karma. How do we exit the wheel? Well, it's realizing that there's more to that. And that's where Aquarius and Pisces come in. So, and we do have Neptune in Pisces. Jupiter is now in Pisces, is co-ruler of Pisces. So we felt that expansion of our consciousness, of all of the potential realities that we can be in. And Saturn in Aquarius, of course, is also in its co-rulership in Aquarius. So it's also been setting some very firm boundaries for us about our own evolution and how it's going. So really powerful today. And then we move on to the Venus. Like I said, Venus is in a conjunction with the moon's north node. The newly opened lands, also in a conjunction with fixed star Aldebaran. Okay. Aldebaran. This is success through integrity. Okay. This is related to Archangel Michael, right? And so we're rising to the occasion here. The newly opened lands offer the pioneer, this is the Sabian symbol, by the way, offer the pioneer opportunities for experience. This is where the North Node is. This is where Venus is. So it's the power and joy of new beginnings. There's an innocence and a joyfulness in this process. And we have fully separated from the past and are now rising to the occasion to face the future, right? Where we do utilize and stand in our integrity as we move forward into success. Now, remember where the south node of the moon, that nodal axis is Sagittarius, right at Antares, right? The heart of the Scorpion. So we can use that energy as momentum moving forward, knowing that we've been in a place where we have collectively created new institutions, new governments, new cultural organizations from our collective value system and knowing the big picture and the truth. We've been there, we've done that, but the South Node is about where we are coming from. It is the momentum forward, but is not the direction we are headed, which has been a real challenge. It really has. And as this person that has a stellium in Sagittarius, believe me, I have been struggling with this since the nodes shifted. And we're going to have eclipses really soon. On the 26th is a full moon lunar eclipse, the sun in Gemini and the moon in Sagittarius. We're going to have a solar eclipse on the 10th of June in Gemini, 20 degrees Gemini. Okay, so pay attention to what's going on in your chart because that's going to impact a lot of how you personally interact with these transits and what you can do to be a conscious co-creator. But it's been a struggle because we want to unify under some sort of collective truth and value system, either religious, philosophical, right? The big picture. And it's not to say that these things aren't relevant or important, but this is not the direction of our soul's evolution, either on an individual or collective basis. And that is what the nodal axis represents. And if you want to think about it from an evolutionary astrology perspective, if this is a birth chart, you would look at the polarity point of Pluto to see where you need to cultivate your power of transformation in this lifetime, because where Pluto is currently or is at in your natal chart shows you where your power of transformation has been, where your comfort zone is, where you default back to. This Cancerian aspect is really important to consider because it is about being held in the core of who we are, the stabilization within that framework of familial, the familial matrix, the intimate emotional bonds that create a family, right? Or create a tribal identity of some sort. It's important. And with Mars here at Sirius, representing very simply the mundane becoming sacred, utilizing the energy, natural energy, the energy of source creator, and infusing that into everything is a big part of the Sirian archetype. And so the Sirian starseed's got a big old activation over the weekend and coming into it right now, but especially when there was that quincunx to Saturn. Oh gosh. But right now, where Mars is not only at Sirius, but it's at fixed star Capulus. This is really cool. I haven't seen this one before, so I appreciated being able to go into to exploration mode, which is my fifth house is Gemini. So, and that is Gemini archetype, exploration, discovery, all the things that where Venus and the North Node are. So here's Mars also in conjunction with fixed star Canopus. Here's Sirius right here. And Canopus, which is really not that far off in terms of longitude. They're pretty much the same. And what is Canopus? This is the heel of the ship. Jason and the Argonauts, right? The quest for the Golden Fleece. And so Canopus, not cannabis, although that's a different conversation. Canopus, as a star and as a fixed star, was essential in terms of navigation. And so we are being, there is something, the star does represent, especially with Sirius and then with Canopus, where Mars is, we're being directed, we're given direction if we can tap into this. And Mars, is really not in his power in Cancer, right? It's in its fall position. It would rather be in Capricorn. So it is this ambitious energy to act, and the warrior within us, that divine masculine warrior energy within us that Mars represents, right? The ego consciousness wanting to just be itself in its fullness is not very powerful in Cancer, but we do have all of these connections now to help direct that energy while Mars is in this position. It might not be as powerful in terms of action, creation, transformation, but what it can do is heal and to protect. That's a big part of the Cancer archetype too, is protection, right? The shell of the crab protects what is inside. The womb protects the growing life. The family protects the growing character or personality. So there is this direction that we can go, and we're being given opportunities to see where to go. But the patience is what's really important today. And there, the North Node of the Moon, for as much as it is leading us to where we need to go, remember it's the head of the dragon, right? So there can be kind of an obsessive quality here of I gotta get there, and it pulls you and pulls you and pulls you. And with Venus, it's very palpable, right? We feel it. We feel it in our senses, our physical senses, in our relationships and how they feel, in the material world, how that feels to us, what feels good and harmonious, what feels disharmonious and discordant is all part of what Venus represents. And she pulls towards her what it is that she wants. She attracts it to her. This is love from a very simple standpoint, but also from a very natural standpoint. Remember, Venus rules Taurus. So there can be an obsession, almost a really strong urge. That dragon is always moving towards its treasure, right? Always moving towards its goal, and will pull you and pull you and pull you. And so Venus is making that very, it's almost like we're attracting to us where our soul is pulling us towards at the same time. And we can be aware of that and also not allow it to take us over, because that's the other thing. Venus wants what she wants, and she will pull it towards her no matter what, because she does represent the incarnate divine feminine in physical form, the Empress, right? Holding that space, but bringing everything towards her, holding the space of growth in Taurus, the actual soil that the seed is planted in. So as much as we are also heading towards these new lands, we also can't get completely consumed by that journey, because we have to exercise some patience. And with the moon coming into Leo now, this is going to really stimulate quite a bit of, quite a bit of that blood rushing to the head. So let's look at that. Let's look at that real quick here. So I want to show you moving into Leo. So here we go today. And this conjunction with Venus and the North Node will happen exactly after the moon moves into Leo. And so we're going to start feeling, we individually and collectively, I'm sure, we're going to start feeling the blood rushing to the head, right? The desire that the Leo archetype really represents, because it is, there's ambition. Our vital energies are mobilized under the spur of ambition. And this energy comes through a field of consciousness that's still controlled by our ego to a certain extent, because we are still at the bottom of the chart, right? We're still at the bottom of the chart, which is where all the individual processes are happening. So it's important that we consider that, because we do have to exercise this prudence and this patience for something that is naturally unfolding. And also, all of these other, like I said, this moon in Leo is going to spur this ambition. It's going to spur us into action and activation. And it's not that that is a negative thing, but you'll see right away it's in a quincunx to Jupiter in Pisces as well. And so for as much as we individually are feeling, this ambition and the spur of our vital energies into this ambition, the quincunx is like, well, Jupiter's expanding on all of the possibilities, all of the things coming to market, right? That first degree of Pisces is it's the farmer's market. It's everything coming to market and having to be accounted for. Everything that we have put together, we've sown our seeds, we've cultivated our garden, all of that, and now it's coming to market, and there's no going back. And Jupiter's expanding on all the potential, all the possibility, and it's really up to us where we want to focus our attention. This quincunx today will require that we adjust ourselves emotionally when it comes to this cycle of the collective transcendental and spiritual experience, because again, that is what Pisces represents. There is no boundary in Pisces. Everything is related to everything else. And boy, Jupiter is at home here. All right. There is, which is interesting because Jupiter's other home is Sagittarius, which is naturally square. So there's this mutable energy here that is important to keep in mind. Whereas the moon in Leo is fixed fire, solar energy, right? We want to be exactly the fullness of who we are. And that blood is going to start pumping through based on our heart waking up within us. And so it's the adjustment here is going to keep us grounded to a certain extent if we see it that way. Of all of these potentials. We have all of the potentials. We can just stroll through that market, and we can we can interface with everything there. And there are no boundaries here. Jupiter just expands and expands and expands. And it's like, look at all of the options here in terms of where we are going. So as much as we each individually are going to be like, in that Leo mode, it's important that we exercise the patience. So without further ado, actually, let's get into the reading, because this is going to show, we're looking at the future here with this reading, that's for sure. It doesn't often, it's not always based in time, like linear chronological time in terms of these readings and the daily transmission. But this definitely is about what to expect in the week and how that energy is going to play out if we exercise some patience. So some extra energy coming out in terms of what we're paying attention to, the divine physician and the spiritual community. Wow, there's so much healing that can come out, that we can heal ourselves. We can be examples for healing for other people. And it's really about coming together and consolidating our, that power, because the end of Cancer, especially the last half of the Cancer archetype, is about consolidation, right? Not only have we made a decision of where we belong, where our loyalty lies, where we are stabilized to the core of who we are. And then you consolidate, right? You pull in, you tighten the lattice work so that it is, so that it actually is reinforced and protected. And it's about our emotional bonds. And so the Sangha, or the spiritual community, the Eight of Roses, very much at the top of our awareness right now. So Let's go through this. Number 1, here's our passion or lust card, number 11. So we've seen this already, and I talked about this last week, and this was in the effect position, right? The cause and effect of this horizontal axis. It was in the effect position, and I said this is going to be when this whole energy is going to be about when the lunar transit is in Leo, and this is where we are now, and we're going to have this for up until the first quarter square. The very last degree of Leo is when the moon is going to square the sun, and then they are both going to move into signs that are ruled by Mercury. And as you see here, we have the Magi. So here's our passion, right? Our lust. This is that 5th house, the sun and Leo, and it's creative development the creative development of our passion leads to enjoyment and fulfillment. So, it's characterized as lust because that is really how, that is where life comes from to a certain extent, is this passion and this quote unquote lust. But if we think about it and utilize it for its natural components, this is where we get our enjoyment and the fulfillment of the 5th house, which is about passion, which is about creative development, which is about expression. And if you see here, it's about the Kundalini awakening and utilizing that appropriately and for the highest good, and not just our own needs, because that's definitely the essence of black magic, is utilizing all of this energy and this natural technology that is our birthright, using it to control other people and situations rather than allowing this process to unfold naturally. So, but as you can see, we got the snakes at the top. We have the woman pushing this throbbing seed up through the soil, the Kundalini activating. She is in control. As you see, she is in control of the beast with many heads, right? She's riding that beast. And so, this does suggest that we can't just let this passion and this lust and, even feeling such a strong sense of expression, we can't let it be in charge, right? It's just a part of the process that we have to go through. And if this is the end, this is where narcissism really gets stuck here, right? And when you get stuck in that 5th house, you don't move on to the 6th house in Virgo, as we're going to see. This is where you start utilizing this energy for purposes that are very egocentric, right? And this is the challenge of the 5th house, I think, and the Leo energy, because we can easily get caught in this loop where we are using this energy for our own reasons, and also become impatient, as we're going to see. If we don't utilize this creative expression and our passion for the highest good, this is where we get stuck, and the energy kind of just keeps recirculating through us. So this is the causal factor, right? Here is our moon in Leo, and this is a big card. This is a major arcana card, number 11. This passion and this lust for life and this creative development that can come from it is very much embodied in this card. And we're going to start feeling it very strongly because of this moon in Leo right now. Now, coming into the moment, the sun in Virgo, the prudence, right? This is patience, right? Patience and consideration. Now, the seven of discs is Saturn in Taurus. It's failure, right? We learn something when we get to this point because it's a divine intervention with the 8, right? Patience, consideration, waiting for the right moment, okay? You cannot force the blossoms to open. You cannot force the fruit to grow any faster than it's meant to. And this is about learning to be careful, to be considerate, and wait for the right moment. The patience is at the heart of this moment, and it seems like nothing is happening, but if you look at this card, everything has come to fruition. We just have to be patient for it. And this is going to be more of a representation of when the moon comes into Virgo after the last degree of Leo squares the last degree of Taurus where the sun is. Then moon comes into Leo, and we really start to feel the necessity for patience, for doing the inner work to organize our emotions and put things where they belong and allow the process of it's really about doing the work under the surface, right? Virgo time of year is when in terms of a seed or in terms of a plant growing, I was professionally in horticulture for a number of years. So this was where a lot of my awakening actually happened, strangely enough, because before that I was, a professional body worker for a long time, and my license is still active, but I'm doing this work now. But it was when I stepped out of that role and moved into, horticulture and being around the plants more than anything is where some things really clicked into place. And so Virgo time of year for an annual growing cycle is when the plant is pulling its nutrients up from the soil. All the work is happening under the surface, just like the hermit that is representing Virgo in the tarot. All of the work is happening under the surface. You're taking the nutrients up to help the fruit grow big and to provide, the right framework for the seed of the next cycle, represented by Libra when we come into Libra. So we're going to feel this much more when the moon comes into Virgo, the patience, but this is getting us already set up for it, to be patient, to be prudent, to wait for the right moment. It's really easy to jump on things, when it's not time, because we're impatient. We want things when we want them. And this comes directly from an unresolved Leo, unresolved fifth house. You know what I mean? Getting stuck in the fifth house, getting stuck in the passion, and the lust, because we want to keep feeling that feeling over and over. And then eventually we have to do the actual work of disciplining ourselves, purifying ourselves, bringing in healthy routines, doing self-care that is boring and not very glamorous, right? It's very glamorous in the fifth house, right? The sixth house, not so much, but this is where the patience is going to be really worth it. So at the, we can really draw our power actually from this concept of the fifth house from a very innocent perspective, the garden. So I like to think about this, this really represents children, obviously, and the Cancerian archetype, because the garden does shelter the children, but I think it also represents the potential of the fifth house. You have the two polarities, the male child in the red and black has got a slingshot, right? And the female child, or certainly, the female gendered, the feminine gendered child, is got this little magnifying glass and is exploring and discovering this little butterfly here, but they are protected. We can really draw our power from this place of protection and this place of being contained, this very Cancerian archetype, in order to maintain this sense of innocence and exploration and discovery within this garden, right? There is innocence here, and we can draw our power from this place while everything is kind of raging around us. And there is a passion, and in some ways, children, they don't feel lust necessarily. They feel passionate, and they feel drawn to just being themselves. And so that can be represented in a lot of different ways. This person, this little human here is, shooting the slingshot, and this little human here is discovering nature. And so all of these are possible to us if we allow ourselves to be protected and maintained by this garden. You could even think about it as like the Garden of Eden in some ways, from an archetypal perspective, that there was an innocence here, and we could explore at our own progress, at our own trajectory, because it was all contained in some way. So we can draw our power here, right? This subconscious energetic root, this vertical axis of our power. And this is where we can actually root ourselves. That fourth house in the nadir is this Five of Roses, allowing the emotional protection of the spiritual community that we're part of the family community that we're part of. Hello, cat. Angus says hi. Come on. Yeah, come here, buddy. Angus says hi, right? Oh my gosh, no, you have to go. I don't know what it is about my cat, but one of them, he insists on getting into my lap right when he's about to just fart all over me. It's so gross. It must mean that he's relaxed. Anyway, so this is where we can draw our personal power from this 5 of Roses, the garden that protects our innocence and our ability to actually creatively develop ourselves within the protection of the natural environment. And there is definitely a fence, right? We see the fence. That's not natural. That is something that we make. And there's this bench here as well, but they're not sitting. They are definitely exploring. But there is, of course, a sense here that something has been created for us that we can embed ourselves in order to be free, essentially. So when it comes to where our attention is, so that's where we can draw our power, and it's really happening at the core of us and subconsciously where we are rooted. So where's our attention? I know this is a little faded in terms of a picture, but the divine physician, I mean, come on, guys, this has got Jesus written all over it, right? The healing of the heart, the energy healing of the heart, the Reiki, right? He's got the caduceus on his chest. He's got the bucket that goes into the well. So the spiritual healing, the natural healing, the ability to utilize what's in the environment for healing, the divine physician. This is where we are really putting our attention, especially in the midst of being patient and prudent. We see the necessity for this healing, and it's a time of healing is definitely here, and we are very aware of it, or will be aware of it. And Virgo is very much about convalescence, right? It is about the healing process that goes on in Virgo, because you have to institute actual practices. You have to institute actual routines and your diet and all this kind of stuff to create a vessel that is in health and in full wellness. So again, this divine healing and the divine physician very much related to this Virgo energy. So we're going to really be aware of this very soon. And we either are playing this role within our community, as we'll see, the 8 of Roses. We'll just move right on here because there's 2 pieces to this. The community, the Sangha, the spiritual community. And I really hesitate to use that term because I think it's been completely hijacked, because we're all a spiritual community. I mean, that's where we are headed in terms of an organic timeline, is that we are all a spiritual community. We're all connected through spirit and our connection to source. So we're all in this spiritual community together, but there'll be factions, right? Certain places where we feel much more contained than we do in others, right? And this is very Cancerian, the 8 of Roses, the spiritual community. And it's time. It's time to join. It's time to find them. It's time to rejoin. It's time to consolidate and heal, which tightens the lattice structure. And we're going to be very aware of this as we're coming into the next couple of days. This is going to be at the top of our awareness. This is where our institutional power comes in, our public persona, right? The top of the chart is about our contribution, and our contribution to the whole is very much going to be about the spiritual and the energetic healing that we either bring or that we receive from our tight communities. Okay, we're going to become very aware of this because this is part of the healing of everybody, and this is also part of the Virgo archetype that's coming out with prudence. Right? Like I just said, the healing aspect is very much embedded in the Virgo archetype and the 6th house, okay? As individuals. And it's going to be within our communities, whatever that means to you. So what to expect? Well, this is just so fascinating is the Magi, right? Number 1, the magician. So for all of the negative connotations that this has now been, that is now accumulated to a lot of these archetypes because of hijacking of those with, who can't get out of the material loop of reality. This is about manifestation. This is a symbol of our ability to manifest and realize our own potential to do so. So Mercury is related to the Magi. It's the first card. It is the Logos, right? The power of our souls do need a physical basis in order to manifest, and this represents that as well, is that we have our ability to interact with and utilize everything around us as a means to manifest, but it comes from the idea, right? It comes from the idea. Mercury rules Gemini and it rules Virgo. Keep that in mind. Knowledge, technical skill, the immediate environment that we conceive of, right? Conceptualization is a third house in Gemini, third house and Gemini, ideas and concepts. Sixth house in Virgo, also ruled by Mercury, analysis, right? Details, putting things where they belong. These are both mercurial aspects. This represents both sides of this, because Mercury is in fact an androgynous archetype, right? Has the entire span of masculine and feminine, light and dark. This is why Mercury, or Hermes, is able to move in and out of the underworld unlike any other deity in Greek and Roman mythology, because it is able to span, move through from light and dark swiftly, because ideas are not bound by physical reality. They're not even bound by emotions necessarily. And something to consider, with this the divine physician, that's really important to consider, is that words and thoughts are key components to healing. Once we realize the magician in each of us, and not in a way that we are trying to control or manipulate or use all of these, this very natural and sacred technology that is embedded within all of us, not using it for our own purposes or to fulfill our ego or even to just get caught in our loop of lust and passion, is our ability to heal. And this is where we can really be so powerful. And so to consider that word and thought are key components of healing, because it's not based in physical reality. It's not even based in our emotions. It is something more than that. It is the word, and it is about utilizing the word in order to align with the highest potential. And we can manifest that reality through that. And so we're going to come into this moment of manifestation and realizing our incredible power of manifestation. But it's only, it's going to come through this patience. And we have to accept that. And we have to allow ourselves to be protected in some way, embedded in the places we feel loyal to, where we belong, and consolidate that power in order to heal. And when we realize all of those things, wow, there's nothing that we can't do. There's nothing we can't do. And that is where our integrity comes in, because when you realize there's nothing you can't do, then you have to decide where your allegiance lies. Is it in fulfilling your material reality and that's it? Or is it in something more? So that's going to be something we're all going to have to contend with and address each individually. That's our own individual journey. So it's really exciting. And I knew it would be, because I could just tell last week, that was just the messages coming in, that it was this time frame was going to be very important this next couple of days leading up to the first quarter moon. So, okay. Uriel and the Sphinx. Okay, so this seems a little counterintuitive in terms of a 5 of roses. And we also have the blue heron, which I'll show you in more detail in a second. Uriel and the Sphinx. Uriel is an archangel. Uriel is the fire of God. Uriel is connected to Antares, which is at conjunction with the moon's south node. Antares is the heart of the scorpion. Uriel was not really mentioned in the Bible, and only made themselves known to certain prophets that can hold the secrets, the silent holder of truth. And this is where we can, if we're allowing our passion and our innocence and our joy of exploration to guide us, without any of the darkness attached to it, this 5 of roses, right? These are just innocent children exploring within the confines of a very lush and beautiful garden. If we, there are things that we can be made aware of, and that we can call on Uriel to give us the truth, but we have to be able to hold the fire of that truth, okay? That is why we don't really hear about Uriel very much, but was responsible for, the Tower of Babylon and the flood, right? Was able to give insight into the flood, the reasons for the flood. Like I said, the silent holder of truth, and holds the secret knowledge of the disasters, and the fire of God. This is what Uriel represents. So keep this in mind, because the innocence and the playfulness and the passion that is represented here, that we can draw our power from, is going to allow us to access an even deeper wisdom. And under the Sphinx, right? I mean, the Sphinx even had to be uncovered because it was buried by the sands of the desert. And although modern Egyptology is holding the perspective in the line that, the Sphinx was created just about, around the same time that we know of the Egyptian civilization to have come about, right? So you're looking at 3,500 BC, roughly. There's evidence that the Sphinx is much older because of water erosion. So, and Edgar Cayce, I've talked about this many times, who is such an enigma to me and an anomaly, because he was a very devout Christian. And so for him to start channeling was a big, that caused a lot of, and his readings really healed people, but he also struggled, I think, with this gift because he was such a devout Christian, and all of the baggage that goes along with this kind of work in relation to Christianity, I think, was a struggle for him for a lot of his life. Anyway, the Akashic records are under the Sphinx, and it's really a representation of the wisdom, the deep wisdom of civilizations past, and what had, and the cycles that came about. I mean, we're in, a new cycle coming into the age of Aquarius, this new 26,000 year cycle that is represented by the precession of the equinoxes. So we can draw our power from this innocence and this passion and this creative expression that is represented here. But just keep in mind that we are also, the momentum moving forward to these newly open lands is very much connected to where we've been, and this very secret knowledge of truth, and the silent holder of truth that is very much about destruction. And the rising of the phoenix, that will come after the fire. And then we have the blue heron. Wow. The blue heron, I like this card quite a bit, and it comes out a lot and has been lately too, is make a stand for what you believe in and do what feels right in spite of any judgment or disapproval. Well, maybe even just making a stand in who you are. And, you can see that the heron is standing in this shallow water. So you do find yourself submerged to a certain extent in the emotional arena of everything, but you yourself are standing out of it and standing upright. Just like this, just like the child here with the slingshot, standing upright, just like Uriel standing upright. I mean, we have to face the truth. And Uriel is there to give us the hard truth. The heart of the Scorpion is a very difficult fixed star to have involved in your chart. I mean, there's no getting around the truth from the heart of the Scorpion, and it is the deep truth, right? Scorpio in the 8th house is the deep truth, the dark truth, the shadow realm, having to look at ourselves in the mirror. This is really just stay strong and firm in who you are, even if it is staying out of fear, right? I'm talking about that a lot this morning, about not giving into the fear despite all from every angle imaginable information and propaganda that's be afraid of this, that, and the other thing. There's no absence of fear. It's about facing the fear with courage. And Uriel, as much as is going to give us the truth that is secret and as destructive, is also going to get right to the heart of the matter. And so it's okay. It's okay. And I think we can really draw our power from, again, this exploration and being innocent to a certain extent, and playful, and connecting with our passion in this innocent way, and exercising some prudence as we go through the process. Now, when it comes to Oh boy, the divine physician, the mouse. Oh my gosh. Pay close attention. Pay close attention to your contracts, to your agreements, to your terms and conditions, right? It says you're overlooking some important details. So pay closer attention. We need to pay closer attention to what's going on within, because we want to heal and we want to consolidate the power of this community that we find ourselves in, whatever that is, our family, our spiritual community, our local communities, our online communities, whatever it is, our nation, right? Our tribal identity. We want to enact healing. We want to hold that resonance of healing for ourselves and other people. Be very mindful of what you're agreeing to and your contracts. The mouse is a survivor because it is so close to the earth, right? And is able to pick up on all the subtle movements and vibrations in order to survive. I mean, this is how a mouse survives. And this is really giving us just a reminder. Don't, pay close attention. Plug into the subtle vibrations, the more subtle resonance of what you're agreeing to, right? Again, this Eight of Roses, sometimes, because when you enter a sacred community, a spiritual community, a family, there are things there that, maybe unspoken agreements. Now, when that card's reversed, I mean, that's like a cult all the way that you have to leave. And so I don't feel that energy. This feels much more like tap into the subtleness, right? And be very clear with yourself about your contracts and your agreements and who you are giving your energy to and where you are enacting this healing energy, because it's important as we move forward. And the light of the world, right? We need to be more aware, right? Because the higher self is knocking at the door. And what's interesting about this card, right? The cat is going to catch the mouse, right? So the cat is very aware of the subtle energies and the knock on the door, even if we are not necessarily aware. So utilizing that feline energy as a guide, or, just paying more attention to it. I mean, my cat will definitely catch a mouse and trot along the living room floor in how, she was very proud of herself. So what I'm saying is, and especially the Lyran aspect, because it's very much connected to the feline energy, plug into the subtle nature, right? Plug into this, and don't be afraid necessarily to open the door when we hear it, but you have to tune into the subtlety. Otherwise, we want to do this, right? Our public persona and our contribution is this healing aspect in a very tight-knit community of some sort, but we have to, like I said, be aware. I just can't say it enough. Pay close attention to your contracts and your agreements so that you know that what you're here to do as an individual is of your highest, right? Your higher self knocking, because otherwise our energy gets exploited and used to enact something more that has nothing to do with us. It gets exploited and utilized for something else. And this is why being totally unconscious of all of this stuff is really been why we've gotten to this point in the first place. So guys, that's the transmission for today. I know it's probably been pretty long, but there's a lot going on. We are coming off of the weekend, of course, and we're also, this incredible moment with Pluto and the Sun at Algol and Venus in the North Node, all of these fixed star locations, all of these starseed locations. Mercury is now pretty much right in the midst of the territory of Orion. So Orion starseeds are really getting activated. So there will be information coming out on my social media about a online astrology retreat that's happening. It's free. You can just sign up and register, and you'll have access to, there's so many presenters, and it's all about Mercury, the Gemini archetype, Mercury retrograde, alchemy around all of these things. And I'm going to be talking about the Orion starseeds and the Gemini archetype as well. So just look to social media, or you can get on my email list through my website. All of that is in the description box below. I hope you guys are having a great day. Have a great rest of your week. I will be back tomorrow for the daily transmission. Reach out if you're interested in a reading. You can go to catalystenergies.net, go to the services tab, and everything you need is there. And there's a lot of different options that can fulfill your, needs, financial needs. There's a lot of different price points, and you can just reach out and we'll get started. So take care, guys. I love you. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, share and comment. All of that stuff actually really does make an impact on independent content creators like myself, who don't have like corporate sponsorship or aren't buying. I don't have any bots that subscribe or views or anything like that. It's completely organic. So when you interact with the content, it actually does support the channel. So love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.